All right, guys, congratulations. You made it to the weekend, and this is your Friday Roundup.
You're listening to ChooseFI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. ChooseFI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, guys. Once again, it's coming to the weekend. It's Friday. You made it. The week is over. And you're back with us as we do the Friday Roundup. Welcome to the show. Hey, Brad, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, Jonathan. How about you?
I'm doing great. Super excited about doing this episode today, partially because this is one of the first Friday Roundups we've done that followed a Monday episode that me and you did ourselves, which is unusual. When we started the Friday Roundups, it was always to really go over other guest content initially and then open it up to the community. But when we're just talking about what we just talked about ourselves, that means we have more space to really give this out to our community and really crowdsource this. So I'm excited that we can do that today.
Agreed. This should be a very good episode. We have a ton of emails from the audience. We have a bunch of voicemails, which should be fun to go through. So yeah, this should be a lot less of us talking just about our own stuff and really bringing in the audience, which is the whole goal of ChooseFI. So yeah, this should be a real good one.
I love the feedback that we got this last week. Guys, y'all sent us over 30 written reviews from 5 different countries. It was mind-blowing, and it was incredibly rewarding. And I think it adds value to the show because here's some additional information that our audience could use to supercharge their path to FI. And so, as Brad and I get a chance, we are going to do our best to get out of the way and share this information with you. When we take the time to say the Friday Roundup is crowdsourced by Fire for Fire, that's what this looks like. And how cool is it that we've created this platform that we can actually have this and we can share this? This is like a blog in the comments section where it's gone viral and everybody gets the chance to contribute. But instead of it just being one comment buried under 45 others, you're getting to put this out there on a national platform. It's just fun. I'm excited. I'm excited just to be a part of it. And I'm excited to benefit from the knowledge that y'all are sharing with us. All right, Brad, well, let's just take just a couple minutes and talk about maybe some of the, the highlights from this Monday's episode. And in particular, the biggest thing that struck me was, we put this together and I don't feel like we're doing anything crazy. I live just this entry-level middle-class lifestyle and I try to live just a little bit smarter than maybe, average Joe and essentially have their same lifestyle for a fraction of the price. And honestly, I was expecting some blowback, like people saying, oh, that's unreasonable. That's crazy. How could you possibly do that? But, with all the feedback we got over this last week, it was 90%. Wow, I hadn't thought of it that way before. That actually sounds entirely reasonable and doable. And how am I spending so much? And then it was driving people to go look at their actual line items and see where their money was actually going. And how cool is that?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And that really cuts to the heart of FI and the way that we approach it, at least. There are people who are extreme, obviously, but you and I are just regular guys. We're not doing anything crazy. We're just living a little bit smarter. And Laura and I had a conversation. What's really cool is Laura is now listening religiously to the podcast, and we have a lot more actual conversations about money now and about FI in general. And so it's definitely helped us, even though, we're pretty good at this, obviously, but it's helped us talk about it more. So, we were trying to sit back and say, like, what are we doing that's all that different from anybody else? Because it doesn't feel like we're doing anything special, honestly. And, we were going through, like, just kind of ticking off items in our head of what's so different. And, compared to many of our friends in this area where we bought a less expensive house, but we still probably bought a more expensive house than we should have in the grand scheme of things. So we're not saints here by any means. We bought in an expensive part of town, but we bought one of the least expensive houses we could find in this area. So as compared to our very close, local group of friends, we're probably spending $800 to $1,000 less on our mortgage. Just boom, right there, where we don't have car payments. So that's at least $700 minimum if you're talking just decent cars. So we're up to maybe $1,500 to maybe a little more just between the two of them. Probably $500 to $700 on food, just less in going out and also just frivolous spending, or like we've talked about on prior episodes, just not intentional spending with food, right? Of going in last minute and picking up some prepared food at the food store, which is $10 per person per meal, as opposed to the $2 per person per meal that Laura can amount to when we cook at home. So, I mean, that's over $2,000 right there. Then you get into little things, right? The cell phones are a couple $100 a month. Maybe the cable and et cetera is $100 a month. So, I mean, right there, you're talking probably $25,000 a year at minimum. Just those couple things right off the top. So that's a pretty darn good savings rate just right there in and of itself. Again, just kind of talking about how this is really not that hard. And it's just a regular lifestyle, just a little bit smarter. Yeah. And in that same conversation with Laura, we were really just kind of sitting there and talking about the discretionary expenses that maybe we don't spend on that other people do. And I know Jonathan likes to talk a lot about the fixed expenses, which is what I just went through. But the discretionary things we also don't spend money on. Many people just like to upgrade their house or add little throw pillows or, I don't know, redecorate in some manner. Or, we know our friends who have kids who they've redecorated their rooms 3 times by the time they were 9 years old, like my daughter, Anna. And Anna doesn't even know that that's possible. She just knows that it's her room. It never would cross her mind to, oh, mommy and daddy, I want to repaint my room and get new comforters and get new pillows and all this stuff. That it literally would never cross her mind because we don't do it. We don't model that in our lives, and it would never cross her mind. So it's similar. A lot of these things, like I always wonder. My kids are not very materialistic, and this is not like a holier than thou. I don't think we're the best parents in the world by any means, but I think it's because we don't exhibit wants for anything, that our kids don't see us buying lots of frivolous stuff, and therefore they don't ask. So when it comes time for December and many of their friends have these long Christmas lists, my kids have never had Christmas lists. It would never even cross their mind to want something. It sounds weird to say, but I can't fathom a day where they would walk into a store and say, Daddy, I want to buy that. Like it doesn't happen.
You guys don't go to Toys R Us very often, huh?
No, we do, and they don't want anything. It's amazing. I'm raising like these mutant kids.
They are. So what are you putting in the cereal?
I know. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
Thank you, General Mills and Cheerios. But I swear though, man, it's really weird. Like, I mean, I wanted stuff when I was a kid. We would go into Toys R Us and ask for everything, but I don't know. And we have not been intentional about this. This is not something where Laura and I sat down with some master plan when they were born and said, how can we make them into little second generation fire people? That wasn't what happened. It just evolved, I guess, from having this lifestyle of not wanting things desperately. So awesome. Yeah, I know you had something to chat about around this, Jonathan.
Well, 2 things. There are lots of things. This sends me in so many different places. It's hard to fixate on one. But the first is how powerful it is. That is amazing. I hope that my child will be in a similar place. The second thought is I actually have a frugal win. Now, it's from a year back that I hadn't really thought of. And I'm not the best example of not spending money on discretionary stuff. We've talked about the fact that I'm this reluctant frugalist, that I like technology, that I have an eye for shiny objects. I'm not the best example of this, but I have an example that I'm going to point to. I had this lamp in my house because I think one of the things that you were thinking about was like the fact that you guys don't upgrade your lamps. So we had purchased these lamps. My dog comes running through the house and knocks the lamp onto the floor. It cracks in half. Now, my wife's initial thought was to go buy a new lamp, but the husband, Mr. Fix-It, got out super glue, and I super glued that sucker back, and it looked 90% perfect. And it does have a crack on the side, but I kept it in place, and she kept telling me every week, we need to go buy a new lamp. You have to buy a new lamp. But on this one thing, a year and a half later, I won, and that lamp is still there, and I did not replace it. So that is my FWOTW, frugal win of the week. I was trying to hashtag FWOTW. And by the way, guys, we try to just kind of share these different things with you. I took a picture of that freaking lamp, which is, it's just funny at this point. I probably will never change it until my dog knocks it over again. And it's great. And I'm going to share it on my Twitter page and on our Facebook page. So not a big deal. Silly, fun, stupid, it's just fun. But if you are following us on Facebook or Twitter, this is where we do share kind of a lot of these little this is what's going on in our life type stuff. So definitely check us out on there. And you'll get to see a picture of the lamp. Extremely value added Twitter feed.
That's really cool. And just to jump in real quick, with the lamps, I know we mentioned this offline. That's why you brought it up. But I mean, we have these ridiculous lamps all throughout our house, the cheapest things you could find. And like and it wasn't purposeful. I mean, we just, we were kids when we bought these things. Essentially, we didn't know what was, what looked nice and what didn't. But we never look at them. We would never cross our minds to upgrade the lamps in our house. It literally never would. Like we have some decoration, some vase above our mantle, and that thing has been there for 12 years. I guarantee you, if you take a picture of our house 20 years from now, it'll still be sitting right there. Like it just would never cross our minds. And it's just those little discretionary things that other people just, again, frivolously just waste money on. And like, again, this is not like a holier than thou. It's just, I get no value out of any of this stuff. So why would I waste my money? And really, more importantly, why would I waste my time upgrading this stuff and going to 5 different stores to find the perfect window hangings or dressings or whatever the heck they call them? And I mean, I know people who go store to store to store just to find the perfect curtains. I mean, if that's what your life has devolved to, you got to find better priorities. It's just people walk around busy all the time, just all the time, and stressed. And really, when you take a look at your life, like, you got to figure out where you're spending your time. And I actually, and Jonathan, we will go back to, I didn't mean to hijack you here, but I really actually did want to spend a couple of minutes on the podcast today, just kind of talking about this, the life hack aspect of what we're doing here. This is not entirely about money. It's also about, FI to me is about living a better life, to living a more productive life, a less stressed life, and just an overall happier life. And my kind of call to action to the audience this week would be, take a look at your life, and almost invariably you're walking around saying you're stressed or you're busy. And I get that. I mean, obviously we have busy jobs, we have busy lives. Many of you have kids, but try to implement just one thing that would make your life easier. And if you can do one thing every single week, by the end of a year or 2, your life is going to be so much easier. I know I've mentioned previously, one of the best life hacks that I've put into place in the last year is using an app called Todoist. So TODOIST. And I have literally outsourced my entire brain and all the to-dos that I have in my life onto this app. And I cannot tell you, if you would have told me that 8 months ago when I implemented this, that it would have transformed my life this much, I would have paid $20,000 for it, honestly. And I have, every single time I have something recurring in my life, even just like changing the air filters or, you renew your CPA license, I just put it into Todoist as a recurring task. And that is then out of my brain. So I now have dozens upon dozens of these things that are just in there as recurring tasks, and I don't have to think about them. They are just in Todoist, and my life is so much easier. And then you have the mundane day-to-day, things with the websites and my family and all this stuff. So, it does get down to the real granular stuff, but everything is in there. I would say check that out. Check out Todoist, or not even that, just do anything. Maybe make a couple of dinners where you're not scrambling around every single day. Like we've talked about in the past, make enough for leftovers for 2 nights. And then that just saved you an hour or 2 of your life. And honestly, as we always talk about, send us feedback. We want to hear what life hack you put into place this week. Take action and send us an email, feedback@ChooseFI.com, and we'll read it on next week's roundup. We want this to be a crowdsourced podcast, and we want to make your lives better. That's what this is all about. So take action. Put something into place and make it happen, and let us know. So yeah, that's my little soapbox thing for the week. So Jonathan, I'll throw it back to you, buddy.
That's super cool. That reminds me of 2 things. One, essentially what you're saying, there's another quote out there, and you probably know who said this. I don't. Do one thing every single day that matters, and then apply that across the board. So if your goal is fitness, what's the one thing you're going to do for fitness today that matters? If your goal is self-development, what's the one thing you're going to do to develop yourself? If your goal is financial independence, what's the one thing you're going to do today to get yourself closer to financial independence? You can apply it across the spectrum, but if you just focus on the one thing, at the end of the year, you're going to be 365 steps closer to your goal.
Yeah, I love that. I I do not know who said that, but that really rings true with me and is how I'm trying to live my life now. And I know you're trying to put this into place too. And not only just in life, but on the website, right? We had this conversation 2 days ago where it's easy to get bogged down in the million different things you can do for the podcast and the site. And it's so exciting, but a lot of that is taking you away from your growing family. And honestly, to me, that's just not okay, right? I told you that, like, I don't want you spending so much time on the site and on the podcast because your family is more important. And if you focus, you and I and everyone out there focuses on that essential one thing. And there was a book actually called The One Thing, which I've read and is phenomenal. But if you focus on just that one thing that's really going to make everything else easier, then that is value added. And that's how you should be living. And you really, like, part of life to me is getting better at things and having goals. And I know I've talked about this on prior podcasts, but a lot of it now is fitness related for me. I am trying to do two things, and it is get into this Brazilian jiu-jitsu that I've mentioned before. And this is a total departure for me. I have never done any kind of martial arts or anything like this, but it's the coolest thing I've ever done. And it's probably a 15-year journey to actually get legitimately good at this. And right now I'm terrible. You know, I've been doing it for 8 months, and I mean, I'm pretty good for 8 months in, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm terrible. And but that's part of the fun, having that newbie mentality. And in martial arts, it's a white belt mentality of just teach me and let me learn and let me try. And I'm like the least flexible human being in the entire world, or I always have been. But I've been really working on that recently. And I know this sounds so silly, but it's just the fact of working on something every single day. And like, I've gotten to the point where when you always had that touch your toes test, right? And like, I mean, I couldn't get within a foot of the ground. I mean, it was pitiful. And now, I mean, I'm at the point where I can almost get my palm on the ground, which I've turned myself into a flexible person by just working hard every single day. And for 5 minutes, we're not talking spending an hour stretching. I mean, I don't have that kind of time in my life, but 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes to do anything, right? And that's what I would say for the audience. So I know we're focusing a ton on life hacks here, but this is the essential part of life. And it just makes everything else easier, like doing that one thing that will actually provide you value.
Very cool. That quote inspires me so much that I'm going to go ahead and do a second quote today that also just this last 2 weeks has changed the way I look at the world. And I'm not saying that now I am changing the action going forward, but rather I realize that this is what happened to me over the last 2 years. And that quote is by Jim Rohn, and it's very popular and widely spread at this point. But you are going to be the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And when you apply that to your life, so if all of those 5 people are all just living up to their eyeballs in debt and happy with it, and they're spending every penny that comes out the door, living for the now, not thinking about the future in any way, shape, or form, you are going to be that person. If your 5 friends are all wildly overweight and are perfectly happy with it, and they are sedentary and they don't move, you are going to be that way as well. But if your 5 friends or the people that you spend the most time with are all focused on financial independence and sharing life hacks and getting to this common ground, this common goal, you are going to hit FI infinitely faster than you would on your own.
Yeah, that's a really powerful one. And it definitely touches on all aspects of life. And for me, I've found since reflecting on this over the last couple of years, I found I have tried to remove a lot of the negativity from my life and a lot of just the inane conversations that I just don't want to deal with and I just get no value out of. And to me, it's finding people that you enjoy being around who challenge you to be better. And for me, a lot of it has come from people in the FI community. And I'm constantly emailing with Brandon from the Mad Scientists or Carl from 1500 Days. These are the people who I'm closest with in this world now. And we talk about little things. We challenge each other. Even Carl and I are doing some kind of actually that fitness stuff that I had talked about previously, where, running a mile in X time and doing X number of pull-ups and push-ups and things like that. And Carl created a Google Doc that we're sharing, that we're keeping each other updated. And we're also involved, Steven, who was the organizer of the Camp Mustache that Jonathan and I went to down in Florida. So the 3 of us are now just kind of emailing back and forth and keeping each other accountable. And it's little things like that that just make such a difference.
And you know what's cool about it, guys, is, you guys are listening to us for more than 2 hours every single week. I mean, of those 5 people, like there's real value there. So we're already occupying 2 of those spaces of those 5 people, which is really cool. So you just have to figure out who the other 3 are going to be. And then you got this thing covered. You've got it all figured out. You're going to win. So there's my encouraging message of the week. And I hope you guys enjoy it. But I mean, those 2 quotes together have the ability to transform your life when you apply them to every facet of your daily living. I had some great feedback from a listener this week, and it was on the specific show. And that's what I love about the Friday Roundup. Like, Brad and I do not have all the answers, but we're constant learners, just like you guys. We're always trying to find the next thing that can improve our life and speed up the path to FI for all of us. And so when we throw out these ideas of where we're going, the input that you give us, it speeds up our path to FI. And then when we share it with the rest of the community, that accelerates your pace as well. So this came from a listener, and Deidre sent me this comment, and she said, I was just listening to your latest podcast, that was episode 20, and she wanted to pass along the suggestion to look at this particular company, SBLI. That's SBLI.com. And she says a lot of factors go into rates, so it's tough to make comparisons between individuals, but Deidre was able to get a $1 million 20-year term policy. She got it at age 34 for under $35 a month. And she said, while I'm new to this financial independence stuff, at these rates, she said, I prefer to carry too much insurance than not enough. If I died in a car crash next week, my husband would have to find a daycare with longer hours or hire extra help in the morning and the evening due to his commute. Both of those would cost more, and he'd probably eat out more or start using something like Blue Apron, which would cost more than we currently spend on meals. Anyways, with the upheaval in my untimely death, the upheaval that would cause, I expect the cost could go up. Now, all those factors being aside, that email is awesome just because that is an unbelievable rate. That's incredible. I was assuming that for a 20-year term, a $1 million policy, that would be a minimum of $70 to $100 a month. That's just in my mind. That's what I thought that would cost. So legitimately, if that's the price that you can get as a 34-year-old $1 million policy, that is a great deal. So I'll put the link to SBLI.com in the show notes. If y'all are looking to get into a term policy, that may be a great place to start. And Deidre, thank you for taking the time to send us that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that's very cool. We love getting these little hacks where Jonathan and I are going to look into that and see if we can save money. I mean, honestly, we have not done the research on this company. So I don't know how that stacks up precisely, but it certainly sounds fantastic. I mean, that obviously well enough that we're going to read it on the podcast and be super excited about it. And that's the cool thing is people, you guys out there are tens of thousands of you listening to this podcast, and you guys are doing cool stuff. And in many cases, better than what we're doing. So please, as always, just send us the ideas, feedback@ChooseFI.com. And I actually wanted to, this is not going to be applicable to everybody, but just kind of ties into that exact thought, which is I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine over the weekend. Kids were playing over at our house, and we were just kind of chatting for a couple hours. And he actually listens to the podcast now. I had a sense that he was interested in finances and things like that. And I went out of my comfort zone and mentioned the podcast to him a couple weeks ago. And he has just devoured the episodes. It's amazing. So, I mean, we had like a 2-hour talk on FI, which was just so cool that I can have that in my real life now. So it's really super neat. And he mentioned that he has a new homeowners insurance that's only good for people here in Virginia. It's called Mutual Assurance of Virginia. And he's paying like 20% of what he was previously paying for homeowners insurance. And this is kind of a special company, and the details are kind of beside the point. But just the fact that now I have this thing where I might save $500 a year on homeowners insurance because I had this one conversation about FI with one of my buddies who I never would have talked to this about, and just because of this podcast. And that's really neat to me. And actually, just kind of talking about him in this whole long conversation about FI, we really set him on a plan. He works for the state of Virginia, and he has a pension, actually. So that kind of changes the FI landscape a little bit. He actually has to work for another 16 years. But even in like a 20-minute sub-conversation, we basically put him on this path where in 16 years, he's going to have his two rental houses paid off, his primary residence paid off. He'll have put in $18,000 a year to his 457 and to his wife's 401k and have this pension every single year. So, I mean, he's going to be rolling in FI dough in 16 years when he retires, and they both can retire at that point, which will be really decades ahead of when most people will be able to, and what they even thought was plausible. So it's just such a cool example of how just talking about this stuff just makes such a difference. And I know, Jonathan, we're constantly getting emails about the podcast and iTunes reviews and things like that. People saying, this is the first time that I felt like I could actually share this with my friends. So like that kind of feedback means so much to us, that people are listening to this and hearing us just as regular guys who are not doing anything special, just kind of implementing these life hacks and making the difference between maybe never retiring or retiring at 70 and having control of your life. So that's just, it's just so gratifying. So thank you. Thank you all.
I love it. I love that people are taking action. I love that people have had the ability to get to FI this whole time, but just never knew the rules. And once you just show them the 1 through 10 step process, the simple path to wealth, exactly what it would look like for their specific framework, suddenly nothing's really changed. They didn't have to get a raise. They didn't really have to, completely transform their life. They just had to do a few things a little bit smarter than implement a plan. And suddenly now FI is an achievable thing. It's incredibly powerful. Okay, we're going to listen to a few voicemails this week. We got a lot of input. We're really excited about crowdsourcing this and getting y'all on the air as much as possible as it fits the story we're trying to tell or adds value to the community. And so this first one is from Harrison. And Harrison has some feedback for a listener that we talked about on last week's Friday Roundup. And she wanted to know how to get started with VTSAX. And we gave one suggestion. That was a pretty good one. But honestly, Brad, you listened. I mean, I think Harrison trumped both of us. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do.
All right, let's take a look. Harrison, thank you for this comment. Very, very cool stuff.
Hi, I'm just calling to leave a tip regarding VT Sachs. On the most recent episode, there was a letter from someone who was interested in knowing an alternative to VT Sachs without the $10,000 minimum. And I just wanted to let you know that there is a fund from Charles Schwab, SWTSX, which is virtually identical to VT Sachs from Vanguard. They track slightly different indices, and the yield at the Schwab fund is slightly lower. I'm looking at it right now, and it's 1.74% yield, whereas VT Sachs is 1.87% yield. But if you compare them, for example, on Google Finance, they're virtually identical for the past 10 years. And the nice thing about the Schwab fund, SWTSX, is that there is no minimum, and the fee, right now at least, the expense ratio is even lower than Vanguard's. It's 0.03%. Currently, I have an auto invest set up with Schwab, and my plan is that once it hits $10,000, I can transfer that over to Vanguard. Once I reach there, the advantage is that I'm having my $200 continually invested, whereas if I were to do that with Vanguard and the ETF, VTI, I would have to buy whole shares, so there'd be money left over that wouldn't be invested if I put in, for example, $200 a month. So it's just an advantage, a possible alternative to consider. So just want to let you know. Thanks.
Harrison, that is such a great tip. I did not know that was a feature. This kind of, should I use Vanguard? Should I use Schwab? This is like an ongoing thing. There's not a right answer here for this one. There's just where you are. Obviously, Brad and I have an emotional attachment, and much of the FI community has this emotional attachment to Vanguard. You do have other options. And if you're listening to this from, either in a place that doesn't have access to Vanguard, you do have other options. The principle is index investing, low fees. It is not Vanguard per se. But the tip that you gave is amazing. I think that's probably what I would now take and encourage my brother to do. Instead of the advice that I gave him last week, I would encourage him to do what you just said, Harrison. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think that that trumps VTSAX for now. Right? For two reasons. Because A, it doesn't have the minimum investment requirements, and B, the fee is slightly lower. So while we love Vanguard, we're not in the bag for Vanguard by any means. So Schwab is a phenomenal company, and that sounds like the recommendation. So thank you very much.
All right, guys, the next thing we want to do, this is actually, I'm probably of all the ones I'm playing today, this is maybe the one I'm the most excited about, just because, not so much this particular message, but because where this is going to go long term. I think this will be a format that we continue to use. So what we're going to do is an ongoing case study, and it'll be spread out over 3 Friday roundups. So as we build this template, we'll continue to get better with it, but just keep this in mind. We have this one is from Paul. He has basically volunteered himself up to be a live case study on the show. But instead of Brad and I just doing this, we have, like we keep saying, one of the smartest communities around. I mean, imagine, you're listening to a podcast that is also being listened to by 1500. It's being listened to by Coach Carson, Jim Collins. I mean, the list goes on. And these are people that are listening to it with you. And then on top of that, we have some of the smartest audience around. I mean, the feedback that you've left on our site is amazing. And this is the same audience that leaves comments on Brandon's site. It leaves comments on Carl's site, leaves comments on Jim's site. We appreciate how smart you guys are. And we benefit from y'all's input. So we're going to play this case. And then as we're playing it, I want you just to think, what additional information would you need in order to build a case study? And then after that, Brad and I will share with you kind of what we came up with. Then we're going to get your input. And then we're going to go back to Paul and we're going to get him to add, that additional information. And then at the end of this 3-week period, we will put together a case study for him and we will lay out that path to FI. And I think that will be a model that we can use over the next 5 years to do case studies for people in different income brackets and different situations. But it will benefit all of us because we will get a chance to see what these different cases look like. Are you excited about this, Brad?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Hey, Jonathan and Brad. My name is Paul. I love the show and the great guests that you've had on so far. Here's my situation. I'm 51, my wife is 44, and our only child at home is our daughter, who's 14. My wife and I are debt-free, including our mortgage, and we have an investment portfolio of approximately $1.4 million. If we include our home and personal property, that increases to about $1.75 million. We're right on the verge of FI and being able to retire early, but we haven't pulled the trigger yet. I've been reading and listening to blogs and podcasts from your guests and others, so I think I have a pretty good grasp on the concepts, the tools, and the processes. But still, there's uncertainty. I know this isn't anywhere near enough information to make recommendations, so I'd love to volunteer as your first live guest case study on the show. If this is something you guys would like to try, please let me know. Thanks.
How cool is this, man? Paul, I love your question. And I love that we're going to be able to do this as a case study going forward. So I've already told you what the plan is here. We're putting this out to the community. Brad and I already right out the gate, we have a few extra questions that we think we would need answered in order to do this right. Brad, do you want to go ahead and drop a couple of those now?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, thanks again, Paul. This is really cool. I jotted down a bunch of questions. The biggest one is, what are your expenses annually? That's an absolute essential thing to figure this out. How is that $1.4 million that you have in net worth split between 401ks and other tax deferred items and regular taxable savings? 3, do you want to quit your job? I mean, is that something that appeals to you? And I guess 4, kind of related to 3, is what does a retirement look like for you? Tell us about that. I'm curious because that could help us figure out how to get you to that path. Are you doing any kind of work or side hustle, as people call it, in retirement or early retirement or whatever? Jonathan, you have any to add?
Yeah. So I guess another thing that would be important is, what is your FI life going to cost? So once you quit your job and you don't have to commute and you're not a lawyer anymore, so you don't have to buy your expensive suits every year. I mean, the cost of your life does go down surprisingly after you quit working, right? Unless you go get that $50,000 a year golf membership. But in general, you're going to have less expenses. So what is your FI life actually going to cost? And then, there's a psychological component to this. So psychologically, Paul, what's holding you back, man? And then the other thing on here is your age. So Social Security for you is probably going to be reality at some point. So, that will impact your retirement to some degree. Would you want to be taking that at the earliest age possible, or would you want to delay it out? There is a difference in what you get. I think Brad and I, we would probably both have to research a little bit how Social Security impact. It's just not built into my own personal FI plan at all. I haven't even considered it. Everything is independent of that. But I think for Paul, it is a reality that it'll be there for him. And then also college savings. So you have kids at some point, their college is going to be a reality. So do you have anything saved for them for college? So that's Brad and I's short list. That's all that we've come up with right now. This is the part of the show where now, for the first time, we get to throw this to our community of 10,000 plus people now. Very, very high level fires, right? Let us know, what have we missed? What would we need to fill that out? What additional information would you want from Paul in order to do this right? And so what we'll do next week, we'll get the answers from Paul on the information that you send us, plus all the ideas that we have. We'll either play his response to that in a voicemail, or we'll just get, we'll read to you kind of his response to that. And then on week 3, we will come up with a FI plan and we'll post that as an Excel sheet or PDF, and you can get it from the show notes, but we'll also read it to you. So that's kind of our general plan. And this, guys, is going to be a template that we're going to use for the next several years. It will always change slightly as we develop it and get it better, but this is a crowdsourced by Fire for Fire, and it's going to be really cool. So thanks for being a part of this.
All right. Yeah, that's going to be a really cool case study, and very excited to hear the audience's input and to get Paul some actionable tips to really make this happen for him and his family. So that's going to be fantastic. And now we want to play a voicemail from Isaac, who's one of our frequent contributors. And yeah, he sent a voicemail in this week.
Hey guys, doing a fantastic job as always, and congrats again to Jonathan on the newest addition to the family. I had a quick travel rewards question for you. I would have loved to have the card opening strategy piece that Jonathan put together when we first started travel hacking back at the beginning of 2016. While we've done well, getting close to $6,000 of free travel in just over a year since starting and having a nice buffer of points built up, I'm a little hesitant as to what to do next. Because of the noviceness when starting, my wife and I are both over the Chase 524 rule. We also don't have any major trips currently planned, but I've seen some really good offers out there recently. For example, the British Airways 100,000 point offer. What's the strategy from here? Do we open up airlines and hotels cards despite not having any concrete plans in the near future to use them? Does it become a hassle eventually to keep those accounts active in some capacity? Or is it best to wait out the 524 cycle until we can start going after some of those Chase cards again? Look forward to hearing the answer.
That's a really good question, isn't it, Brad?
Yeah, this really is a great question. It speaks to the larger travel reward strategy. And my honest answer is things are getting more difficult now. And the banks, to their great credit, are making it more difficult to open up cards continuously and to get these bonuses over and over again. Now, does that mean it's impossible to use travel rewards credit cards going forward and to do this for years to come? No, it does not by any means, but it is more difficult than it used to be. There's no question about it. And honestly, I haven't mentioned this either at my Travel Miles 101 site or here, but Laura and I are trying to currently get back under the Chase 524 rule. So we have not opened very many credit cards in the last year or so because realistically, most of the good cards are Chase cards. So that's a potential strategy, which is if you have a bunch of points, you don't plan on taking any trips in the next year or so, maybe kind of dial back your card opening strategy and get to a point where you're at 0 out of 24 or 1 out of 24, which to everyone in the audience is the number of cards you've opened in the last 2 years. Basically, Chase does not allow you to open any credit cards within reason. They have a couple of carve-outs, but any of their rewards cards if you've opened 5 or more credit cards in the last 24 months. And that includes cards from any bank and includes authorized user cards. So like if my wife Laura included me as an authorized user on one of her accounts, that counts as one of my 5. So obviously there's an incentive to not add authorized user cards. But so, yeah, I mean, that's one potential strategy really, is to just kind of sit tight and get back under that rule. Another potential option is to go to other banks. You know, Capital One has some good cards, Capital One Venture, the Capital One Spark Miles card. Those are solid. Citibank has American Airlines cards. Amex has a bunch of cards, the Starwood cards we love. The Amex Gold and Platinum have great transferable points similar to Chase's Ultimate Rewards. So there are other cards to get, certainly, but it really is ultimately going to be personal preference on what your strategy looks like. So for me, we determined that it makes sense to get back under 524 just because we love those Chase cards. And it's been years since we've been able to open any of them.
That is awesome. This is one of the highest level travel rewards guys in America saying that, yeah, the Chase Gauntlet reigns supreme.
Yeah, I know you love that terminology.
I'm definitely attached to it.
The Chase cards are great, and it's hard not to open them. Honestly, I mean they're just phenomenal cards. So yeah, I mean that's where I'm going with this. But I wouldn't blame you one bit, Isaac, or anybody out there if you decided to open cards from other banks. So it's really personal preference. And just a quick note: the British Airways card that you mentioned, Isaac, is actually not affected by 524. So there are just a few cards, at least by the rules that I've seen. It seems like there's the Chase Hyatt card, the Chase IHG Hotels card, and the Chase British Airways card, which are not affected by 524, which means if you're over 524, you can still potentially get approved for those cards. There are a couple of other ones. There's the Disney card and the Ritz-Carlton card as well, but those are not as desirable of cards, certainly. So Yeah, I mean, that's my answer. Jonathan, you have anything to add to that?
One thing is, Isaac, my comment is not going to help you, unfortunately, but there are so many people that are finding this for the first time that were, Dave Ramsey followers, and he taught you the basics of savings. That's what one of our comments on our reviews was, that he taught you the basics of savings, but then he just left you high and dry, and you're just stuck where you were, but now you're debt free with no vision of where to go next. And that's where this comes in. You find different people to mentor you through different places in your life. But when you're debt free and looking for a FI plan, or how you're on the track to debt free and looking for a FI plan, that's where this podcast is so value added. And if you are a Dave Ramsey follower, you may have done something as extreme as lock your credit. And I had a friend that contacted me that had found out about the podcast, and she listened to it, and she was like, I want to do the travel rewards, and I'm a Dave Ramsey person. I had my credit locked from way back. How do I do it? And she went and unlocked her credit, and now her and her daughter are traveling to Europe for free together. And this woman is amazing. She has done so much for my family, and it was really cool that I could share this information with her. And now her and her daughter are gonna be able to travel the world for free. And that's something they wanted to do, and they had to do it with post-tax dollars. And now they've gotten $3,000 plus a year in free travel that they can use. And the Chase Gauntlet is not limiting. If you do that if you do those 5 cards for you and a spouse, so 10 cards every 2 years, I mean, the implications, that's like almost a minimum of 500,000 air miles, which is just a ridiculous amount of travel that you can get. So it's not exactly limiting, and it's a lot of flexibility. So for all you people that are finding out about ChooseFI for the first time, and maybe you hopped in the middle, our pinnacle episode on travel rewards is episode 9. So go back and listen to that. That is the one where we show you exactly how to get started with traveling the world for free. And yes, we are the home of the Chase Gauntlet. Is that okay?
Hold on, let me just jump in there real quick. So you can get to that episode at ChooseFI.com/009, or really the easiest way to see our entire travel rewards section is ChooseFI.com/travel. And that'll send you to all of our articles, all of our resources, our recommended cards, things like that. So that's definitely the way to go. ChooseFI.com/travel.
All right, guys, so this is a reader recommended resource, and we're putting just a couple extra seconds into this because we know that a lot of this content is America centric. I mean, that's just where we are. So it's just a reality, but we do have international listeners, probably close to 200 of you at this point. And y'all send us resources that are applicable to your life and your framework. And we want to do the same thing we do for everybody else and make sure we're sharing those as best we can. So this is from Nia, and she sent it to us several weeks ago. She says, hi guys, I've really been enjoying your podcast. Love what you guys are doing. Last year, a video series was created by an ex-hedge fund manager, and it's like a 101 course on passive investing. Now, it was posted on the UK Motivator blog, and we'll put the link to it on the show notes. The philosophy and the information are actually applicable no matter where you live, but being outside of the US, I especially appreciated its perspective on how to invest wisely, but still keep it simple no matter where you are based. I've been sharing this series with as many people who will listen, and maybe your listeners will also appreciate it. All right, Nia, we'll go ahead and send that out to everybody. Thanks for sharing it with us. And guys, this is just, a plug for our feedback line. If you want to send us your idea, something that you think will benefit the audience that would add value if only we knew about it, you can send that idea to feedback@ChooseFI.com. Do that anytime. We are neurotic about following up with your feedback and getting it incorporated into the show. So thank you so much for sharing that. All right, guys, we had so many reviews come through over the last several weeks, and we want to go ahead and announce our 2 winners for the drawing for The Simple Path to Wealth. And this week, it's going to be, let me pull this out of the hat. All right, our first winner is Damon. All right, and Damon left us a review and said, easily the best and most important finance podcast out there. It instantly made its way to the top of my list and even replaced my non-FI podcast. I came across Mr. Money Mustache a while ago, but he wasn't relatable. That's why this podcast is so important for those feeling stuck. Brad and Jonathan give you hope and strategies. They make FIRE feel achievable and even inevitable if you follow the FIRE strategies and tactics. A FI podcast I can recommend to my friends to introduce them to the concepts. Absolutely amazing how they pull off being 100% pep talk and 100% actionable steps. My wife and I found this at a critical time as we were Dave Ramsey followers and recently paid off a bunch of debt. Dave's after debt steps are not only mundane, but seriously lacking the intensity and focus of his debt payoff strategy. Brad and Jonathan really lay out a complete financial plan that's relatable, actionable, and achievable. Please keep up the good work. Dude, that is, like I said before, chills down my spine. Awesome, right? I mean, pep talk and actionable. That's the perfect combination. I think that's exactly what we were going for when we tried to create this platform, right, Brad?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to provide essential information, but to make it interesting and to make it so that you want to take action. That's what we're all about, just taking action. So yeah, thank you, Damon. That's huge.
All right, our second winner today, pull this one out of the hat, is Chrissy D. So Chrissy D left us a review, and she is actually from Canada. Oh, cool, man. I wonder what shipping is going to be like to Canada. We'll have to figure that one out, but we'll definitely do it, Chrissy. We'll get it to you. She said, I found this podcast through the Facebook group of another of my favorite podcasts, Dough Roller. I'm so happy to have come across ChooseFI and have binge listened to every episode so far. Brad and Jonathan present fire, lifestyles, hacks, ideas in an approachable, actionable way. I like that they have similar yet different viewpoints, that one of them is already fire while the other is on the way, and that they are imperfect, not afraid to own up to it. It makes them real and relatable. I also love their guest. Although I've read all their blogs, I felt that Jonathan and Brad brought out other facets and tidbits of info that aren't found on their blogs. They are excellent interviewers and complement and balance each other very well when conversing with guests. Finally, their Friday roundups are a great way to review ground that they've already covered. It allows them to add their insight, which I find truly helpful, even though I thought I've already learned everything about fire and frugal living. Chrissy, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with it. It motivates us. You know, guys, I'm going to be honest, this podcast is getting harder. We were able to cover a lot of the high-level stuff when we first started that everybody knows, but we're not content with just stopping once we get done with the high-level stuff. We want to dig down into the weeds. We want to find out basically all the secrets of financial independence and turn it into conversations. And that is a multi-step process. So I'm just letting you know, we are committing ourselves to do this the right way and to give you good information that is entertaining and educational at the same time. And we feel responsibility to give you good, accurate information. And so we're not winging it anymore. We're legitimately putting serious amounts of time into researching it and then turning it into a story. And that's what makes it so rewarding. But your feedback is what keeps us going.
Yeah, your feedback in every way keeps us going, honestly, from what we've talked about where Jonathan and I share texts back and forth of, oh my God, did you see that review come in or that email come in? I mean, you really cannot know how much it means to us. So thank you. And you are the lifeblood of this community in every way. So please keep your case studies coming, keep your voicemails coming, keep your emails coming. You can always reach it, feedback@choosefi.com. And really the biggest thing, if you're looking to help us out, just please take 30 seconds, head over to iTunes and leave us a written review and a rating, hopefully a 5-star one. It means more to us than you can possibly imagine, and it helps us spread this message. And what we want to continue this giveaway for Jim's book, The Simple Path to Wealth, and we're actually going to increase it. So for every 5 written reviews that we receive, and you email them back to us. So just take a quick screenshot or a photo or whatever, and just email it to feedback@choosefi.com. For every 5 that come in, we're going to give away a copy of this book. It is, like we said before, these reviews are the way that we grow. And, we're making a couple bucks from this site from a little bit of advertising. And, we want to send it back to you in the form of this book. And it's just this perfect virtuous circle where we can grow by getting these iTunes reviews, and we want to give back to you guys and get this essential book in your hands. So again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you've done for us. This has been really the most rewarding experience of our entire lives. And, I know we spent a lot of time talking about this, but yeah, these iTunes reviews are just essential. So thank you.
So guys, this is a crowdsourced show. You determine where this goes. Brad and I have ideas, but we're coming to the end of them, right? I mean, the basics of FI have now been covered, but from here on out, we're going to have to get more intense with it. We're going to have to get more feedback to find it. And so these are the ideas that you have given us for what you'd like to see. Sequence of returns. That will be covered partially when we get into wealth allocation models with Jim Collins. The 4% rule, that is absolutely on the radar. In fact, we're going to tiptoe into talking about that this upcoming Monday. Health insurance. That one's tough. It's in flux. It's changing. We're having to research it, but it's on the radar. Side hustles. Brad and I both get excited about side hustles. And whether or not that's real estate investing or starting an online business like ChooseFI, that's something that we definitely can talk about. That's on the radar. Tasha actually sent us a message. She said she would like to hear more tips on hacks on cheap or free kid activities. The power of this show and having 10,000 people that are engaged, like really engaged, is that we can crowdsource this. You guys have ideas. We want to hear them. Our audience wants to hear them. I don't need to know everything, We just need to engage you guys and find out what's working for you. Please send that to us. We want to share it with close to 15,000 people now. If you have good information or you have a blog that changed your perspective on any one of those, send it to feedback@ChooseFI. That's how you can help. You can get this information in front of people and we can share it with everybody. That's the point. Guests that you want to see, if there's someone that you want us to get in contact with to get them on the show, send that to us. Here's what you've told me so far. You guys would love to see Dr. Doom. That is freaking cool. I never read his blog, but I think his website is Living a Fi. We're going to reach out to him. Dirk Cotton, that's someone else. He's a really big guy on sequence of returns. We'll reach out to him. Todd Tressiter's another one y'all asked for, financial mentor. We already have reached out to him and he's down. So we're getting him on the show. Slowly Sipping Coffee, that came through many times. He's on board. We're going to get him in here over the next month or two. Christy from Millennial Revolution, her and her husband Bryce, they went viral in Canada for their different take on home ownership and how to live a FI lifestyle early in life. They're on board. They're coming on the show. So when you give us your ideas and your suggestions, this is what we do. We go out and we find them, but we can't do that without you. This is a joint effort. So that's just kind of this idea of where ChooseFI is going. The next 2 weeks, here's what we have lined up for you. This upcoming Monday, in just a few days, we're going to be releasing our episode on the pillars of FI. It's just kind of these iconic pillars that define our specific FI community. This isn't personal finance in general, but this is the FI community. These are the pillars we lean on. It's a really great episode. It came out phenomenally. I'm excited to share it. Brad, is phenomenally a word or did I just make that up?
Yeah, that's a real one.
Awesome. I'm happy with it. I'm happy. And then finally, the week after that, the true cost of car ownership. This is where I talked about, like, you actually have to put real time in to first find out what is the actual true cost of your car and then take it to the next step and turn it into a story. And we did that and it came out really well, Brad, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Even better than I would have imagined. It's a very powerful episode. So yeah, stay tuned for that in about a week and a half. And then I know we had teased actually that episode 23 would be about home ownership, but Jonathan and I have spent a whole bunch of time researching that and we want to do that right. And we want to do it as well as we possibly can. So we are actually pushing that one back. That will not be episode 23. I know nobody's going to hold us to one fleeting mention that we said a couple of weeks ago, but we did want to mention just quickly that will not be coming up in 23. We'll have, in all likelihood, a new guest on. So yeah, stay tuned.
That basically brings, this episode to the close. The Friday Roundup is becoming the hub of the FI community. It is a weekly gathering place where your voice is heard and shared around the world. And the fire is spreading, my friends. It is absolutely spreading. So stay with us as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to ChooseFI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.